So the next one, and probably one of the biggest out of everything we're talking about here, and I talk about this in my book, but practice, practice, practice. Okay. So I remember when I used to play basketball and I wanted to get better at my jump shot when I was in high school. And so I would shoot a lot. I would shoot after practice, I would shoot before practice, I would shoot on the weekends, to myself, just trying to work on my shot. And one thing that I realized after a while, and one of my teammates, they noticed this and, they mentioned it to me, but I was doing all of this shooting and all of this practicing, but I had bad form. Like my form was bad. Like my shot, even though I was doing all of this practicing and everything, I wasn't practicing with the right form. So regardless of how many balls I shot and everything like that, ultimately I wasn't getting that much better because my form was lacking. And so it's really important that not only do we practice, but we practice on the right things, right? So if you have a meeting coming up, if you have a speech coming up, if it's just going to be a discussion with people at work or whatever the case might be, you want to take some notes about what is it that you want to say? Like, what do you want people to walk away with after your talk or after you've made your point? Because it's very key. Sometimes we can get in these meetings and we're talking and we're getting our words out, and that's fine. But are we really getting out what we need the end goal to be? Are we really getting out what we need people to take away from what we're saying? And so I would encourage to practice it. If you have a meeting coming up or a discussion, whatever the case is, what is it that you want people to get out of it? Like, write it down, like have the notes and have a good feel for what you want the takeaway to be. Because once you know that, then you know going into that meeting or that discussion what you need people to take away from it, right? So know what you want people to take away, and then practice just speaking. Practice speaking. One thing about it that I'll say is I've begun to do, speaking engagements with the Introvert Leader platform, as I began to, lead a lot more meetings at work with what I do as a program manager and just having different discussions with people throughout my career. The more that I've done it, the better I've got. Now, here's the thing. I am not some master public speaker that never gets nervous, okay? I'm just a guy that used to never want to speak in front of people that is a lot more comfortable doing it now. But I'm also a guy that still gets nervous. So it is not that the nerves go away. It's not that you're going to never be nervous. You're going to listen back to this and listen to these tips. And you might have to talk to somebody tomorrow or talk in front of a group and you might still feel nervous. But guess what? You're going to at least be armed with some tips that can help you. And I also want you to realize you're not the only one. Okay. So if you think about somebody like a Barack Obama, I bring him up all the time. He's someone that has described himself as someone that enjoys working alone. He would classify as being someone with an introverted personality. But you see him speak and he's a dynamic speaker, okay? And I don't want you to think listening to this, if you're someone that's introverted and you're a leader, that introversion and like not being able to speak publicly is linked somehow, because they're not. They're not. Introverts can be amazing public speakers. Extroverts can be amazing public speakers. So practice is really the thing that separates people that can communicate well with people that might struggle. And so whoever you are, like whatever your space is right now, if you're used to talking in front of a lot of people, or if you're not used to it, the more that you practice, the better you will get. I promise you. This is coming from a guy that just never would do it. I just would refuse. And it wasn't until I just decided that I wanted to get better, I made that decision and I began to do it over and over and over again, that now I at least feel comfortable enough to do it. And, the nerves go away a lot more than they used to. So practice, practice, practice. I will say you could even do something like pick a topic at home. If you're at home and there's a particular topic at work or in business that you might have to talk about in the future, you can think about that topic and just try to come up with something to talk about on the fly about it, and talk to yourself in the mirror. Just talk to yourself in the mirror. I used to do this. I mean, I would have meetings coming up that I was super nervous about. And so I would sit at home in the bathroom and I would have like my notes of what I wanted to talk about the next day. And I would just practice talking it out, having the conversation. You know, I would also write down potential questions that people could ask. That's another thing to practice. You know, Q&A. If you know you're in a situation where people could ask questions, how do you respond to those, right? So try to come up with a list of what are all of the potential questions I could be asked, and then how could I respond to those questions? That's another aspect of practice, and that'll help you out a lot as well.